met people that eat terrible diets and take a supplement thinking that that will replace a healthy diet. And that's not true. What we have shown in my lab and others, many others have shown, is that you need to do both to get the biggest bang for the buck. And you can't just expect supplements to replace a healthy diet. Hey, Serena.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm good. So I didn't do a big intro on you today because I figure by now it's our fourth part in our series and everybody knows who you are. And if they don't, then they can go back and watch our other 3 episodes and learn all the things. But there are so many questions, and it's wonderful because I finally sort of had the chance to explain to everyone what these badges are that are down here. And my team was trying to get me to explain the last few episodes. But what I was telling everyone is you clearly are so busy. You're on the road now. You're on the road all the time. You're tuning in and doing this live to answer questions as a Q&A to the podcast that you do every Wednesday. And it's just giving people an opportunity to ask questions. And we try to house all the questions we can, all the hundreds of questions that come in every single week. We do the best we can to answer them, but it's so kind of you to do this and so kind of both of our teams to put in their energies to make this happen. But I was letting people know that these badges that are down here is a way that they can show appreciation to the team. And also, if they want to bring a really important question up and they want us to see it, I guess the badges highlight them in some way. So that was something that I wanted to let everybody know. And thank you for the people that have literally just sent in badges just as a thank you to the team and to Dr. Sinclair. So that's it. I know I've used up 3 minutes and we're going to go right into supplements. So this past episode, you talked about it's like a burning question everybody has, which are what supplements do or can we take for longevity? What molecules are important? And today we'll go over a handful of them that you talk about so often, not just in the podcast drop, the last podcast drop, but just whenever you do talk. So we're going to talk a little bit about NMN, NNR, what those differences are, NAD, the differences between those 3 things, because most people don't really understand. Resveratrol, we're going to talk about some Senolytics, Quercetin and Fisetin. And did you want to talk about dasatinib? If we have time, we'll talk about that, right?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, and then metformin, berberine, Spermidine. And for those of you guys that don't know what Spermidine is, we're going to get really clear on what Spermidine is, so there's no confusion at all. And then probably some Rapamycin too. So that's what we're planning on covering today. If we don't cover everything, then make a note of it, and we'll cover the parts that we missed in another episode. So,
okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
5 hours worth packed in.
Yeah, we're going to try to pack it all in. All right, I see lots of questions. So let's start with that. Let's start with the difference between NR, NMN, NAD. I'm just going to let you kind of go while I scroll back and take a peek at some of these questions.
Okay, great. So if you don't know, NAD is a molecule that we need for life. We have a lot of it in our bodies, and we make less as we get older, and we destroy more as we get older. We need to raise that back up. And so typically, if you're my age, I'm 52 now, I would have about half the levels that I had when I was 20. So the idea is to supplement and to get those levels back up. Why? Because there are enzymes that control longevity. Sirtuins are the enzymes we work on, and they need NAD. So do DNA repair enzymes. There's a protein called PARP1 that needs NAD. And so how do you raise NAD? Well, you can fast, you can exercise. These are some ways, but you can also supplement that kind of a lifestyle with supplements. And while, I'll be very careful to say when it's a mouse study versus a human study, we do know from some human studies and a lot of mouse studies that you can raise NAD levels in the body. So let me tell you how to do that. Well, some people take NAD. Now, I don't think that that's the best way given what I know about biology and cells, because NAD is a very big molecule relative to these other ones you've mentioned, and it doesn't get taken up into cells very readily. And probably what's happening in the body is if you have an IV of NAD, it's first broken down into its constituents, which are what we've talked about, the precursors, and then rebuild. So if you're going to take it orally, so take a pill, it can be sublingual, can be swallowed just as a powder or a capsule. I do the capsules every morning with some water. What you want to do is take a precursor. So how do you build NAD? What does the cell do? It needs various components. NAD stands for nicotinamide, adenine, dinucleotide, and those are the three components that you need. So the nicotinamide part of it, you can get as vitamin B3. But I don't recommend to raise NAD levels by taking vitamin B3, also known as niacin or niacinamide or nicotinic acid. This is just one part of a big molecule you need to build. So you want to give all the components. So what are the other components? There's the adenine, which is a sugary molecule. And then there's a phosphate, which is phosphorus, which is oxygen and phosphorus put together. So nicotinamide is vitamin B3. The sugar is the adenine. Now those two put together is NR, nicotinamide, riboside. So you got 2 out of 3 components. But if you take NR, you still need that phosphate. So phosphate, where do you get phosphate in the body? Well, it's in your bones, it's in your DNA, and your body needs to either take it from the outside or bring it from your bones or your DNA. So the other molecule that you mentioned, the one that I take, is NMN, nicotinamide, right, vitamin B3, mononucleotide, which has the sugar in the middle. It's called a ribose, and then the phosphate is also on there, and it's got the 3 main components to make NAD. Okay. And so what we find in our experiments in mice, and it seems true in humans, though we do need some more research, is that if you take NMN, it raises NAD more readily to higher levels because you've got all 3 of the components to build NAD. Whereas with NR, you only have 2 out of the 3. And if you just take niacin or nicotinamide, you've got 1 out of the 3. But it doesn't mean that if you take any of those, it won't help. I just take NMN because I think that it raises NAD levels the highest when you take it. And some people say, do you need IV? Do you need sublingual? How should you take it? Well, what I've done and with my colleagues at Harvard is test it in people. And what happens is if you take NMN over a certain amount of time, which is about 2 weeks, it'll steadily rise up to about 2 times the normal levels of what I would have. And so that's what I do. But you don't need to do anything fancy. You just swallow it, and it seems to get in quite fine into the body and raise those NAD levels. And why do you do that? Because we think that the body's natural defenses against aging are heightened like we're young again. And in mice, there's lots of things that happen that are good. We see that mice run further, they have more activity, they have better metabolic control, they're a bit leaner. And we and others see that older mice are less frail. Now, do we know this happens in humans? No, we don't know. But we are doing those trials. And there are some studies already that show that people have more endurance, more oxygen capacity, which is what we see in mice as well.
So thank you for that. And that was really helpful. I know that we've discussed it before, and there are some comments here about how we've talked about NMN before, but I think it's really important because this topic is about supplements, and something that I actually wanted to ask you to address was, what is the difference between drugs and supplements? And right before you go into that, I'm just going to give our audience, our amazing audience that's here, we have over 2,000 people, just a reminder that this is a learning space, and it's a really kind space. And for anyone on here that didn't hear me speak of that last episode, that didn't hear me speak about this episode, we are going to remove any unkind commentary that's on here because it's very distracting to the rest of our learning audience. So thank you so much. And let's talk about the difference between drugs and supplements.
Right. I do want to mention before I say that I take a gram of NMN. A lot of people ask me, how much do I take? It's a gram a day. Not every day. Sometimes I have a couple of days off. We should talk about on-off days and timing. Okay. But your question is drugs versus supplements. Well, actually, they're the same thing. It's just that one's regulated and one isn't in a different way. I mean, they're both regulated, but one is under the FDA's control and needs a prescription in the US, and one doesn't. And every country has different rules, but in general, the drugs like metformin that we're going to talk about later, you do need a doctor's prescription, and supplements fall into a different category, which are classified as food and food-like substances that you can buy over the counter. And that's really the main difference. It's important to remember that a drug, just because it's a drug, doesn't mean it's any different Some drugs are directly from plants or just slight modifications. Metformin, which requires a prescription, is derived from a plant, just slightly modified. So you just have to remember it's more about regulation than actually the substance itself.
So that's clarity on that. And then some people ask what a gram is. A gram is 1,000 milligrams. So anytime we kind of throw out measurements, you can always Google to see how much that is for you in your metrics.
Oh, there is one more thing that I should mention that's really important.
Yeah.
The reason that drugs are also in a different category is that they've gone through more testing, and that you can be less worried about side effects because they've been through so many tests. And of course, with a drug, you get the listing of all the side effects and you work with your doctor. Whereas the supplement world, for good or bad, but mostly it's a concern, is that some of these products are unregulated in terms of their quality. And this is a real problem that we can talk about, which is how do you know what's a good supplement? How do you trust what you're getting? And so what I would say is look for a company that has a good reputation. So a company that's been around for a decade. Often you can find these companies that aren't just pop up, often unreputable companies, disreputable companies, they pop up for a couple of years, then they get a bad name, they change their name. And so you don't want one of those. The other thing is, as I mentioned in a previous live with you, look for the letters GMP, good manufacturing practices, because that means that they've been certified to produce a product that genuinely has what they say is in there, and there are no contaminants as well.
And on that note, we have so many people asking about brands, and I know this question is going to continue on throughout the course of our live for each supplement that we're talking about. So let's address brands. We've talked about it before, and on this live and just professionally, we typically do not, we can't really endorse a specific brand for various reasons. David, you have your reasons, your associations, and your affiliations, and what we do offer is a guide of some trusted resources that we like that is in our link in our bio, and we will speak specifically about some brands when it's appropriate. But when it comes to NAD and NMN, as far as I understand, there's really no specific brand that you endorse, right? Though you may have spoken of some in the past. So I just wanted some clarity on that, because I know that people are going to go online and they're going to Google Dr. David Sinclair and NMN, and all kinds of things will pop up. So we just want to make sure it's really clear to our audience where you stand on that.
Yeah. Well, so I need to be separated from these brands. And even though you might see my name on websites, and often people just put my name, or they link to a video or my research, which my research is out there, it's public information. Please know that I don't endorse NAD or supplements, precursors to NAD. And if a company's doing that, they're actually they're doing so without my permission. Why do I do that? Well, mainly it's because I want to have independent, objective status. If I talk about the science, that I'm not biased in terms of, am I making money from NR? No. So then that what I have to say is totally just based on the science. But that's my philosophy in general, is try my best not to be affiliated with a certain brand, so that what I say you can trust is not contaminated by a conflict, or at least a perceived conflict of interest.
Okay, great. Yeah. So just to be clear with everyone on here, if you see Dr. Sinclair, if you see content out there that says he's endorsing a particular brand, that's not the case. You kind of heard it here from him directly, which is important. People have questions about whether or not they can take NMN and NAD together at the same time. Not necessarily at the same time in one sitting with the supplements, but just some people do the shots, some people do the drips, and then they also want to take it, the NMN orally. So I would love for you to address that, since there are a lot of people that are actually doing that. We've got quite a few questions about that specifically.
Right. Well, I don't see any reason why that would be a problem. In fact, I've been taking NMN for many years, and I've tried NAD drips, and I think that there's no reason why they cannot be mixed together. Just be aware that if you take NMN one day and on the same day have an NAD drip, you're probably going to make your NAD levels very high. Mm-hmm. Now, is there a problem with very high NAD levels? We don't know. There hasn't been any evidence that there's a downside that I'm aware of in people. Mm-hmm. But I think in an abundance of caution, we shouldn't push things too far until we know more. So I would say, if it were me, I don't make recommendations, but if it were me, I would not take my NMN or NR supplement the day that you're having an NAD drip.
That's great. I don't want to say piece of advice, but that's a great share. So thank you for letting us know that, and hopefully that's helpful for the people listening. We have so many questions about resveratrol, which you've spoken on a lot, but since in the theme of our episode, I think it's important to address that, and then maybe we can even jump to metformin and berberine after that before we dive into spermidine and a couple other things. So we're going to try and hit all the topics today, you guys.
Yeah, good. Well, resveratrol is a core part of my life. I've been taking it since I was 34, and it's gone in and out of fashion. The media, old media, likes to swing this way, swing that way, but the science has been pretty much direct on, which is every week there's another study coming out, either in cells or in animals, and every few months in people, touting or showing that there are benefits, and there are no downsides that I'm aware of. So what thousands of papers now have shown is that resveratrol enhances the body's ability to repair itself. It protects organs in animal studies, and even in human studies, it's shown some benefits. For example, it lowers blood sugar levels, which is what we think is important for overall longevity. And it has even shown some benefits in Alzheimer's patients in an Australian study that was done a few years ago. So I've been taking resveratrol at a gram a day with maybe a day off every couple of weeks just to give my liver a chance to rest. But other than that, it's been a staple. And the other thing I want to mention is that resveratrol is one of the best known molecules for preventing cancer, at least in animals. We don't know in humans. That's a longer study. But I take it for all those reasons. And it's a very safe molecule. It's been in our diet for thousands of years, though not in the quantities that I'm taking, of course. I take a gram. And often people ask me, would I get it from red wine? The answer is yes, but you'd need to have 200, 300 glasses a day of red wine, which I do not recommend.
Yes, so that's really important for people to know, because I think that people are unaware of the amount of resveratrol that they're getting from red wine, though, a little bit of benefits are always great. In order to get the levels that Dr. Sinclair is speaking of, you would need like 200 glasses of wine.
Also, don't forget, as we've mentioned before, to mix it with something oily or fatty or a lot of protein. So a little bit of yogurt, Greek yogurt's great. It dissolves, yeah.
So I just want to clarify, you said a lot of protein. I think you meant a lot of fat, right? Just to dissolve it in either like a coconut yogurt or a fat, or did you mean protein?
Well, so I'm not big on having a lot of protein, as you know,
right,
especially early in the morning.
Right.
But I know it does dissolve. So in the case of a zero-fat Greek yogurt, I do know from past experience that it does dissolve well in that, if Greek yogurt, zero-fat is your kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So thank you for that clarification on that. But yes, that's something that we've spoken of before, just like making sure that you dissolve it. There's so many questions about the sourcing. We've talked about the different colors of how resveratrol should look like. And I know that sounds like almost like a silly, simple guide, but that's really one of your recommended guides in terms of your sourcing of that product, because there's people here from all over the world. And so that's another reason why it's really difficult to recommend a specific brand or source.
Yeah. Well, it's really important to look at the color of the molecules. Go online, look at what color this molecule should be. So some of them are yellow, berberine and quercetin, Fisetin, they're generally yellow. They should be bright yellow, not dirty yellow. Resveratrol is different. Resveratrol is a light gray color and very fluffy. It won't dissolve in water. This is why we mix it with food. And if it comes out brown, you can open up the capsule, look at it. I often open up the capsule and put it into my food. I don't swallow it with food. I mix it. If it's not light gray or really close to white, it's full of other stuff. And some of that brown stuff that's in there causes diarrhea. And that's probably the least of the problems that could occur. So I really look for really pure substances. With my supplements, I look for 98, 99% pure supplements, because it's this other, 30% sometimes that could be contaminants that could do you long-term harm over decades of use.
Sure, no, and that's a great point. And to kind of piggyback off of that, I did see some comments here about Japanese knotweed. That's a source for resveratrol. There are certain brands that do combine their resveratrol with, say, grapeseed, or there are other ingredients in their particular blends, and so that might be why it won't have that. It won't be white, but that's also because it's not pure. So just to keep that in mind, that for those products, and there are a few that I recommend to my clients that I won't name here, but sometimes they're not completely white, but that's because they have other ingredients that are blended into it. So just to keep that in mind for those of you guys that are sourcing on your own.
Yeah. So, for example, there's a there's a substance called FOTI, F-O-T-I. Do you know that one? And that has a lot of resveratrol in it. Now, that's been used for thousands of years in China, and that I think is an example of, you can choose to have a biological product that's been taken by people for thousands of years, but it's the products that are trying to pretend to be pure that are not pure that I avoid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so that's really the note to make. It's just that if a product claims to have purity in its ingredients, and you'll be able to tell by the notes that Dr. Sinclair gave us on how to discern between that. So okay, so maybe we should shift a little bit and talk about let's talk about time of day, because there were questions about that time of day to take these supplements. So with the resveratrol, I can see it's scrolling. Is there a specific time of day that you recommend for the maximum benefits?
Yeah. So the molecules that we're talking about here are activating sirtuins, and so resveratrol acts like the accelerator pedal. NAD is the gas, or the petrol if you're in a different country. And together they rev up the sirtuins. So why is that important? Because the sirtuins and NAD ramp up in activity in the morning. It's part of the circadian rhythm, the daily diurnal cycle, as it's called. And you want your body to be in sync with itself. Otherwise, you have jet lag and you get tired. And so I take these molecules almost without exception in the morning, and I feel this boost of energy because of it. And if I take them late at night, often I don't sleep well. So that's very important. There are other supplements such as metformin, vitamin D, K2, fish oil, that I know, or at least the science says they don't affect sleep-wake cycle. So I take those at night instead.
Okay, great. So you just mentioned it. Let's kind of segue into metformin and berberine, and then maybe we can address spermidine after that. Since we're about the 30-minute mark, so we've got maybe about 20 more minutes left. I'm trying to break it up here, you guys. I'm going to get better about the pacing.
All right, so let's go quickly. So metformin is a drug for type 2 diabetes. It's used around the world. People who have diabetes typically take 1 to 2 grams a day. It's a lot. And you want high purity, but you'll need to talk to your doctor or go online and have a doctor prescribe it for you. If you're in the United States or Europe or another English-speaking country, other parts of the world, you can actually get it like aspirin over the counter. They're not here in the US. Now, it's a molecule that has been shown in tens of thousands of people to not just prevent and treat type 2 diabetes, which is high blood sugar, brings it down again in most people, but it also, just by looking retroactively at these people that take it, they are relatively long-lived compared to people that don't take metformin and who don't even have type 2 diabetes. And the reason is, it looks like that those people who are susceptible to heart disease, cancer, frailty, and even Alzheimer's disease, dementia, are protected somewhat by this drug. And that's remarkable. That, to me, says very likely that there's a drug on the market that happens to be for type 2 diabetes by the FDA, but it's actually slowing down aging. And so that's one of the reasons that I take metformin most days of the week. I don't take it typically if I'm going to do a lot of exercise the next day, because there is about a 5% difference in muscle growth taking metformin versus not. And it probably is because it interferes with your body's production of energy slightly. It interferes with your mitochondria that make the energy ATP molecule. Now, often people say, well, my doctor won't give me metformin. I'm young, or I don't have type 2 diabetes. And there's an alternative, which is there's what's called berberine from the berber plant. It's yellow, and it's an extract. What's great about berberine is that it works very similarly. It boosts the mitochondria. It inhibits it, but then boosts in reaction to that. And it also reduces blood sugar levels like metformin does. And that's been shown in a number of human clinical trials. And so you can get berberine online. Now, talk to your doctor, because playing with your metabolism is no small thing. Make sure your doctor knows you're taking supplements. That's always the case. You need, especially if you're taking other medicines, your doctor needs to know what you're taking. And then there's been a study that shows that the combination of metformin and berberine together has additive effects and can actually help metformin lower blood sugar even better than not taking berberine.
Yeah, and so, and I just want to address, and thank you so much for that. So much great information. I just want to address some of the questions that have come up here. Yes, this will be recorded. We release, the replays go up usually within 3 or 4 days. But if you sign up to the link in our bio, both Dr. Sinclair and I have links in our bio for a list that you can go on, and you get those replays sent straight to your email, along with the notes about the topics we covered. And often we also share links as well. So some of these studies that Dr. Sinclair is referring to, we will have those in those emails. And so I highly suggest that you do that. And I'm sure you already follow us both, but if you don't, to do that and to put post notifications on, because then you'll know when we come up here, and then you also know when the replays are ready, because we always share. So just a quick note on that. And I also wanted to share, because I don't often in these talks, that I am very much in the same protocols as Dr. Sinclair, very slightly, obviously because I'm female and built differently than Dr. Sinclair. And I also have some herbal supplements that I also take that we won't talk about in this episode, but we're planning on doing on another episode to kind of address adaptogens and other supplements. And there are questions about dosage for metformin. And that's really something that you should talk to your practitioner about, along to echo what Dr. Sinclair said. All things that you're putting into your body, what we share here is not advice or recommendations so much as is what we've done for ourselves. Obviously, there's scientific findings on things, maybe things that we've shared with our clients, but to each your own. You need to know your own biomarkers, and you always want to speak with your own practitioner about what you're taking, whether it's a supplement or a prescription medication. So I would say for metformin, you really want to talk to your doctor about that, and you may titrate up. So whatever amount you end up at, you might start lower and then kind of move up over the course of a month or 3 months. So keep that in mind. And also sometimes there's some digestive side effects from taking something like metformin. And for myself, that was the case. And so options for that is asking your practitioner for a compounded version of it. So it's a little bit cleaner. It won't upset your tummy quite as much. For any of you who do find that it may give you digestive discomfort. So just little notes that you guys can take with you to your doctors.
Yeah, and I have mine with food, a little bit of food, because it lines the stomach. I also have this problem with the stomach. There's a lot of references to scientific papers, including all about metformin, that you can share with your doctor in my book. And so that's Lifespan, if you haven't come across it. It's packed with lots of information about AMPK, about sirtuins, mTOR, which we'll talk about in a minute, about rapamycin. That's the handbook for what we're talking about today.
Yes, and for those of you, if you don't actually have Dr. Sinclair's book, then you need to get it, or you need to at least go and download it onto your Audible or your Kindle or whatever it is, because what we're doing here as we sort of unpack all this information, it comes from his book and it comes from his podcast, which drops every Wednesday. If you haven't already tuned in and downloaded, his new podcast episode dropped today because it's Wednesday. And our follow-up Q&A is usually on Mondays. Today is a Wednesday, but it's usually on a Monday after his podcast drops. So for anyone that jumped on after the first 10 or 15 minutes, or you're new to this community, then get the book, download it, share it, gift it, and make sure you go and you follow, you rate, and review the podcast, which you can find anywhere.
Oh, I've got a surprise for everybody.
Ooh, what's the surprise?
Right now, you can get the ebook for $1.99.
Wow! There's an ebook?
Are they crazy?
An ebook.
The publisher, I think, accidentally timed this with the podcast, so you can get it really cheap. So this isn't very widely known, but anyone who's listening, go get it. It's basically free right now.
What? Okay, so you guys load up, get it, send it, and you know what? There might be a surprise if someone actually does these things, screenshots, send it, DM. Maybe we'll have a surprise for someone who does that in the audience, because we love it when you take notes, and we love it when you engage, and we love it when you share your thoughts with us on here. Okay, so before we jump into mTOR and rapamycin, let's spend a little bit of time on spermidine. So I want to make sure that as we start talking about spermidine, and I actually have a bottle of it because I take it. Oh wait, that glare is no good. Can you guys see it?
No, we can.
Okay, so well, you know what? If you guys go to the link in our bios, spermidine is one of our trusted resources, and we're going to dive into it a little bit now, and you'll be able to see it better because you can go to the link. All right, that's a fail. I'm sorry. It's spermidine, and you'll be able to see it when you go to the link in our bio. But let's talk a little bit about that, David, and explain to people first of all what spermidine is, and then the benefits.
Yeah. So spermidine is found throughout life. It is found in sperm, but it's also found in plants. It's found in our bodies, and it's called a polyamine. It's a really small molecule that is actually very protective against things like oxidative stress. And one of the things that it's been found to do mostly is to induce autophagy, the ability of the body to recycle old proteins and make proteins back into amino acids to build new proteins, which is very important for longevity. And Frank Medeo, who Serena, you know, and I know, he's a scientist from Austria, has done about 15 years of really high quality research looking at starting with yeast cells where there's spermidine, but also in worms and flies and mice, and increasingly some studies in humans that we're aware of that is not yet published, but we're going to share that with you. Mm-hmm. This molecule extends the lifespan of all those species. And that's really amazing. There are very few molecules that I'm aware of that does that. So I've recently started taking spermidine as well, because we want to induce autophagy, and that would help induce what fasting would normally do, or it would help accentuate the benefits of fasting.
Yeah, it's really, I've been taking the product now for several months, and it's so funny, we're already seeing comments about the name, but it really is, and something that what Dr. Sinclair was saying about that it's a polyamine is how you pronounce it, right? It's really difficult to extract it naturally where it can be safe and stable for human consumption. So when you get the bottle, when you see what it is, there's some confusion about grams versus milligrams. And so the product that's on the market that we use, it contains 1 milligram of spermidine per 800 milligrams of the wheat germ extract, because that's where they get it from. So I just want to give the audience a little bit of clarity on that, because the numbers may seem confusing when people make recommendations about how much to take. And again, it's one of those products like everything else where you have to sort of take what is attuned for your body and work with your practitioner on that. So the recommended dosages are 2 capsules, which is 800 milligrams of the wheat germ extract, and that's 1 milligram of spermidine. So that's what it is on the bottle. But Dr. Sinclair may take a little bit more than that, more or less. I may take more or less. So clarity on that. And as we're talking about spermidine and how it's extracted, and again, a lot of these supplements, as Dr. Sinclair is saying, come from whole plants and foods, and that's something to really remind ourselves of, because even though we're talking about supplements, they aren't meant to replace, eating a healthy diet. And I would love for Dr. Sinclair to speak more about that, because he's really the go-to expert about supplements. But we want to remind people that there's nothing better than having a really whole, nutrient-dense, plant-forward, if it's not plant-based, diet.
Oh boy, yeah, you've been teaching me a lot about that. I didn't really know I was existing on a cheese and red wine diet. But yeah, I've switched to be much more plant focused and feel the benefits and see the benefits in my blood work, which I do fairly regularly. But it's taking supplements, even though we've shown in animals and others have shown in people that can mimic exercise, can mimic fasting. It's not an excuse to sit on the couch and just pop pills. We've met, you and I were talking earlier today, we've met people that eat terrible diets and take a supplement thinking that that will replace a healthy diet. And that's not true. What we have shown in my lab and many others have shown is that you need to do both to get the biggest bang for the buck. And you can't just expect supplements to replace a healthy diet.
Yeah, and that's just like a reminder, and I think it's a great. We're a little bit past midway, but a great, sort of midway point to remind people, even though we're talking about these supplements and all the amazing things that can help you, that it can do for your body and help you in terms of your health, your immunity, obviously your longevity. It's most important that you are using them supplementally, that they in no way replace high quality, nutrient dense whole foods. So I just want to circle back because there are some questions about Spermidine. It is from Austria. It's not from China. And there is no sperm in it. It's from wheat germ. I know that if you just jumped on, it might sound confusing, but this is derived from wheat germ. It's a wheat germ extract. And even if you are someone that has a gluten intolerance, it's absolutely something that you can use. Again, if you are celiac or if you have a really severe allergy, then you might want to work with a practitioner. I always recommend working with a practitioner and kind of starting slow, titrating it in, seeing if it's attuned to your system and your body. But as far as the studies have shown, people with gluten intolerances and even allergies can take Spermidine with no issues whatsoever. Okay, so I'm going to go through and I'm going to remove some people from the live because there's been commentary from our audience that there's some comments that aren't kind. So as I do that, I'm going to let Dr. Sinclair talk about rapamycin, and then maybe we can talk about some Senolytics before we wrap up.
Good idea.
Okay.
And I also saw a question, what about the carnivore diet?
Yeah.
And I talk a lot about this. The summary is that, there's a big debate. There's the carnivores and then there's the vegans, and they're seemingly opposed. Now, in the short run, both have been shown to have benefits. There's no argument that you can see that there are benefits. But the question is, what about long-term health? And there the science speaks volumes. And I would love for a carnivore diet to be associated with long life. I wish that were true because I love meat. But it's just not the case. Speaking as a scientist, if you look at people who eat certain diets, the people that live longest are those that don't eat a lot, don't eat 3 big meals a day, they eat less than that. And they are mostly plant focused. They don't eat meat all the time, especially processed meat. We know that, of course, that is the worst. But even large amounts of meat, what happens is that you can be in 2 different states. There's the abundant state, what I call the abundance mimetics, mimicking an abundant state, or the adversity state. The adversity state is when the body thinks, wow, times are tough. I could starve. I could get into trouble. I need to run away from a saber-toothed tiger. That's the adversity. We also call this hormesis. If anyone's listened to us before, hormesis is what doesn't kill you, makes you live longer. And both diets will have an impact either on one or the other. Of course, the carnivore diet is the abundant state. Your body times lots of amino acids, build muscle, grow, heal wounds. That's what that state is. And it'll actually be very good in the short run. There's really no question you will build up muscle, probably slightly faster, certainly more fast than if you're only on plant-based. But the problem is that if you stay with that for decades, the science says that it's not going to be as healthy in the long run as being on a plant-based diet. Now, you can have a really nutritious plant-based diet. Serena, you've been educating me on this. That will be as good as the meat-based diet for physical and mental capabilities. But in the long run, we'll be turning on these defense pathways that in large part are controlled by mTOR, little m, capital T-O-R, which stands for mammalian target of rapamycin. So we get to this drug, rapamycin. Rapamycin is a drug that was discovered on the island, Easter Island, Rapa Nui, and hence the Rapamycin. And it's used in high doses to tone down the immune system so the body doesn't reject organs. But it was also shown to inhibit this mTOR enzyme that senses amino acids and meat consumption, particularly leucine and serine. These are abundant in meat, not so much available in plants. So the summary is that if you eat a lot of meat, your mTOR defenses will not be as active against aging as if you're on a plant-based diet. But you can mimic a plant-based diet and fasting by taking rapamycin, the drug, but not in high doses. Of course, you don't want to downregulate your immune system.
Right.
You want to just inhibit it a little bit so that it's as though you're not eating a lot of meat. And then you'll turn on this autophagy, recycling proteins. That's very good for health. But you should know you can't just go out and buy rapamycin. You do need to talk to your doctor. It's actually not that easy to get. So that's why I typically just skip meals. It has a very similar effect.
Yes, so thank you for this. And I there haven't been as many questions about rapamycin, but I thought it was really important to bring to the conversation because there have been enough. And people are so curious about it. But again, it's just one tool in a whole toolbox of things that you can do to support yourself to help, trigger all the things that help your system with longevity. So one of the things that we want to talk about, and thank you for the question about C60. We have Dr. Sinclair, as you know, I do another live series with another scientist, Ian Mitchell, and he's got some incredible products that he's created in his lab that are also really helpful. And so for those of you who have questions, again, I encourage you to go to the link in our bios, and there is a trusted resources, a trusted library. And I can at least speak of the things that I use. And there are some brands that I share there. And you can go there and take a look. There's a lot of information on there. And it's just really helpful as you navigate these conversations, and the different questions that come up are answered in previous episodes and in the notes, in the bullet points that we share, and the links that we share there too. So, okay, so we have a few more minutes. What do you think we should focus on? Should we talk about Senolytics? Yeah. Okay, so let's I'm gonna let you dive into Senolytics.
All right. So if you don't know, senescent cells are old cells that stop dividing and put out inflammatory molecules called cytokines. And they've been shown in animals and some studies in humans that if you get rid of them, kill them off, the body recovers and heals and becomes more youthful. And that includes treating metabolic disease and high blood sugar as well. And Jim Kirkland, who's at the Mayo Clinic, is the world's expert in this, and he's running human clinical trials. So he's a friend of mine, so we're up to speed on that. And what he's shown is that there are plant molecules and some drugs that work to kill those senescent cells and not so much normal cells. Of course, you don't want to touch the normal cells.
Right.
Now, there are drugs, there's navitoclax, there's dasatinib, but the ones that are available to the regular consumer are quercetin, which is, again, a plant polyphenol, similar in shape to resveratrol. And another one you mentioned earlier, Serena, Fisetin. I call it Fisetin. And it's also a plant molecule. And these two are shown to either prevent the senescent cells from secreting those inflammatory molecules. That's called a xenomorphic. Or in the case of Fisetin, it's actually can kill those senescent cells. And there's a group at University of Minnesota, Laura Niederhofer and Paul Robbins have shown that if you give Fisetin to mice, they actually live longer by about 10%, by my recollection. But what's interesting about it, it also works if you give it to the mice midway through their lifespan to extend their lifespan. And the other thing, it's not very well known, but because it goes back a number of years, but in 2003, my lab published a Nature paper that showed that resveratrol activates SIRT1, these SIRT2 enzymes, but in that group was also quercetin and Fisetin. And so those three are ones that I take regularly, not just to work on senescent cells, but they also activate SIRT1, so you get this potential double benefit. But overall, I think that Senolytics are really interesting and can be really useful to prevent that type of aging, which is caused by inflammation.
Yeah, and again, it's such a good reminder about inflammation. and how that does cause aging. There's so many things that we can do to lower our inflammation levels, and we're just giving you a handful of tools now, but in past episodes and just in lifestyle and other topics that I've talked about, not necessarily on this series, that can really lower inflammation, including meditation, which we'll talk about another time. There have been a lot of comments about the difference between men and women taking these supplements. And for those of you that are really interested in that, Dr. Sinclair's podcast that drops today covers hormones. And there may be questions that you have that are already going to be answered in that podcast episode. So I highly encourage you to go download it, listen to it, rate and review it. And if you have questions that aren't answered in that episode, then bring them next week and we'll address them. And anything that we don't specifically address, we might just create an episode around. So I'm not going to dive into that here, since there are a lot of questions about fertility, about male and female hormones, about how these different supplements affect you if you are in that fertility process. When we do that, I will share that I have been through IVF myself, and so I'm well versed in the process in terms of food and supplements with fertility and enhancing fertility. So I'm happy to share that with you guys when we do that episode. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, we should definitely do that, because my lab is one of the few in the world that, at least in animal studies, can reverse female infertility. We should talk about the potential of that.
Yeah, I think that would be a really great focus, because I have seen just throughout the course of the episodes we've done that there is a lot of questions about fertility. So I think it'd be great to just focus a whole episode on that, and we can dive into some of the different recommendations, some of the supplements we've talked about, and how that can help. And I'd also like to address some of the comments about food. I know that we've talked a little bit about food. It was so broad, and there's so many things to cover, that we will likely focus an episode that's specifically about food, the foods you can eat, where some of these products are derived from. Quercetin from cherries and Fisetin from strawberries. So there are foods that you can just add to your diet on a regular basis that may not be in the quantities that you need to have this kind of effect on your body, but at least you're it's just there. It's part of your daily practice. It's not going to hurt you to add a few more strawberries and cherries to your diet, and it has benefits that you're not even yet aware of. So until now.
Yeah. Serena, somebody asked just now about C60 and where do I come down on it? Yeah. I'm taking C60.
Yeah,
and so far so good.
And you're using the same product, right? Are we using the same product?
Maybe.
Okay, so this is and I'm getting messages about the timestamp here, so we're gonna have to wrap this up in just a couple of minutes. But Dr. Sinclair uses C60. I obviously do as well. There are, I think, the replays on the discussions we've had, not you and I, but I've had about C60 is already up. I would say go to YouTube and subscribe. It's Chef Serena Poon. If you haven't subscribed on our list, please do, because we send that information out, and we definitely dive into C60 in a couple of those episodes on my series with Ian Mitchell. And if you want to talk about this, we can, David, in a different episode. But I feel like it's been covered.
Yeah, Ian knows his stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, you guys. Well, I'm wrapping up. It's been amazing to share space with you guys today. Thank you for all the support. We have a great audience. Thank you, David, for being here again weekly. You're amazing for creating this space and time. And is there anything that you want to, I guess, let people know? Oh, people are asking about your special, the ebook, or is it an ebook, or is it the Kindle or the?
You can get it on Kindle, right?
Okay, so and David's book Lifespan, you can get it on Kindle for $1.99 right now. And I don't know how long that's going to last, but I would highly recommend you get it if you haven't. If you already have the book, get the Kindle anyway. So you have it in different formats. And make sure you go to Apple Podcasts or Anchor, anywhere, and download and listen to Dr. Sinclair's episode that drops today. Lots of information, and make sure you have your questions ready for next week. And I think that's it. Thank you guys so much. Thank you so much, David. And I will see you guys really soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.